Saturday night and I'm drinking alone. But if you drink enough, you're not alone. Hi!
and Robbo.
Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight, and David Robinson.
Ben, Rob and Robbo. News, views, entertainment. It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Here's Rob McKnight.
Hello and welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Oh, the chaos that happens when you've got David Robinson staying at your house. Ben Norris, I can see you. I don't think... Oh, look at Robbo getting into his position. Very professional, Robbo. Ben Norris, how are you today?
I'm doing really well. I think it's less about me and it's more about what's going on at McKnight Manor.
I wish you were here too, Ben. That's a road trip just waiting to happen. Actually, when everything opens, Aaron at Ticker TV has invited us all down to do the show from the Ticker TV studios, and we are locking that in when the time comes and it's all safe to travel and do all that kind of stuff. We are going to come down, and if we do that for a week, boys, Robbo, it's going to be a big week. Oh, Robbo,
in
all that madness of you trying to do cameras here, you've lost your microphone. He'll be right back.
You guys are looking very fresh today. I'm assuming that last night was a fairly easy night for the two of you.
Well, last night I was doing the TV Black Box podcast with you, and then I was staying up and editing it all night. So I was a very good boy last night. Not much sleep, but I tell you what, this Thursday, Ben, it's funny you bring this up, but this Thursday I'm going to reveal, I'm going to talk to my doctor here on the show about the impact of lack of sleep and why I wasn't sleeping. I thought I was tired from just working a lot, but it actually turns out there was not one but two things going on with me that are easy fixes for everyone who's feeling fatigued. And it doesn't involve exercise or diet or anything like that. This is going to be on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Seriously, this has changed my life. I have bundles of energy, which is scary for people like my wife, Amanda, who just have to deal with me on a daily basis. But yeah, this is going to be a big story. And Robbo, I believe you're back. He's joking.
Yes, I am.
I can hear his lips move, touching.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm back. I'm here. I'm ready to go.
So
Good morning, Ben.
Maybe tomorrow we just focus on you being in your seat. All right. But look, there is so much news to get to today, and we've got Josephine Mitchell coming up, which I just love. I loved her on a country practice, and luckily we get to talk to her a little bit later on.
Awesome.
And Sam Dastyari will be joining us to cut through the political spin. But in the meantime, President Donald Trump has dramatically escalated the already volatile situation in the United States. In a brief 7-minute address from the Rose Garden, Trump said that he will mobilize the military if governors and mayors don't take control of the riots. Here's some of what he had to say earlier today.
Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace. As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property.
The president went on to say that the protests and riots were a total disgrace and the nation is gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, looters, criminals, rioters and others. Robbo, doesn't he have responsibility to make the streets safe no matter what?
Rob, this is a really big story, isn't it? It's really awful. I've got to tell you, my mic dropped out. What was your question there, Rob?
I said, doesn't the president have the responsibility to make the streets safe no matter what?
Yes, he does. Of course he does. But at the same time, as a leader, as the commander-in-chief, he also has a great responsibility to try and, to use his word, quell the violence and quell the disruption. This is something that's been, simmering underneath, the soil of America for centuries now. I think it's really bad counsel, but also classic Trump, to come out and say, well, if you don't back down, we're going to bring fire and bullets and rain down on you. And I just think that that's not helpful right now. Obviously, looters need to be pulled in. Violence needs to be stopped. But I just don't think that adding fuel to this already very volatile fire is the best way to go. Am I alone on this?
No, Ben, I've got to say, I was surprised by the tone of the speech. There were some lines written in about the peaceful protesters, but Trump's overall message was not one of understanding why people are angry and why they're rioting. His was, it felt political in that he wants to be seen as the commander-in-chief, and if no one else is going to fix it, I'm the can-do president who will come in and fix it. I don't think the tone of this speech was right.
Well, I don't necessarily know if the tone was right myself, but I will notice something. I did notice something, and that was that Donald Trump did sound particularly different to what we have seen before. It is an election year, so I think with it being an election year, he's taking this as an opportunity to just show how presidential he feels he should be. And I think that there was a lot of people waiting and watching. There was a lot of rioters at the front of the White House. You may have noticed that his microphone was closer to his mouth, and that was so that they could make sure that the rioting in the background wasn't as audible. Look, the man is in a world of pain. America is in a world of pain. Donald Trump is a dickhead, and I'm terrified for everybody.
That's interesting, Ben. I wasn't sure that you would take that tact, but I'm intrigued to hear that. I think that outside of America, we are all looking at this president, and no matter your political views, I think a lot of people always give the President of the United States respect and goodwill. But
Not anymore.
To outsiders looking in, he just seems like he doesn't care about people's lives. You know, people are dying in these rioters. 104,000 people have died of the coronavirus, and we get more tweets about his political foes than we do about caring about people's deaths. It is a shocking state of affairs, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the world is looking on in horror. I must admit, yesterday I went to bed feeling a little bit depressed and feeling a little bit down. And I'm actually wondering when we'll hear from Scott Morrison, because here in Australia, we've always looked up to the the US of A. And watching this and watching on in horror, I think we're lacking a little bit of leadership with him not making a comment. I understand that most of the leaders around the world right now are feeling particularly nervous, but I think if you're a good leader, you will acknowledge that Australia is watching something. We're watching on in horror, and we are feeling the effects. And going to bed last night in Australia, whilst we might be miles away, I felt terrified, and I felt sad, and I felt depressed.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, staying with the riots, and George Floyd's brother has spoken out about his tragic death on ABC's Good Morning America.
Are you and the family concerned that that will take away from the message, the call for justice in this, for your family and in this country?
Yes. Yes, I do feel like it's overshadowing what's going on because, like I said, he was about peace, he was about unity. But the things that's transpiring now, they may call it unity, but it's destructive unity. It's not what he was about. That's not what my brother was about. You know, he would motivate you to channel. If you're angry, it's okay to be angry, but channel your anger to do something positive or make a change another way.
Ben, they're very powerful words. Is that the right time? This feels like a good statement to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wasn't it horrific as well? Further on from what we just saw there, it is believed that the conversation that he had with Donald Trump was still very difficult. There was no emotion from Donald Trump really, and it seemed that he had to sort of yell to be heard to get in any kind of information. I think that this is a good sign that, not a good sign. This is a sign that Donald Trump doesn't even know how to communicate, even at the best of times. I mean, any human can understand that that man's lost his brother, and he should have been able to humanize with that on a better level.
Yeah, the reports on that are just extraordinary, that Trump just spoke all over the man every time he was trying to speak and wasn't in the mood for listening or for consolation. It's a very strange situation. But the police officer who
Why bother?
Sorry?
Yeah, why bother? I mean, I just think why bother? Like, you know, for Donald Trump, why did he bother making that phone call? Because at the end of the day, that phone call should have just been about an understanding, some empathy.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump doesn't have empathy. So why bother even taking that phone call? That's what I was confused about.
Yeah, I think you've got a very fair point.
Good point.
He was probably told to do it and then just didn't pull it off like someone like Obama would have. Well, the police officer who has been charged with Mr. Floyd's murder has been moved to a maximum security prison. Derek Chauvin has been fired from the Minneapolis Police Department. He will remain in prison until his court appearances. His wife of 10 years has filed for divorce. Robbo, does he deserve this protection?
Look, everyone does. We've got this idea that obviously we've seen the video, but there's always a lot of other things going on, isn't there? So I think that anyone who is this high profile, as someone who has not been convicted yet, it is important to provide that kind of protection. This man, I think, would not last, 5 minutes in the general prison population at this stage. He does deserve that protection. And once he's convicted, he also deserves that protection as well. He did the wrong thing. We've all seen the video. It is harrowing. But we don't, we live in a society where you're innocent until proven guilty. And there is no point in throwing him to the dogs, to use an old saying. But it's not an eye for an eye. I feel it possibly, Rob, do you think it's an eye for an eye? That he should just be given that non-protection considering what he did?
Well, he's an innocent man until he's proven guilty.
Yeah.
And look, to be honest, just yesterday there were more police using that exact same tactic to bring a man down and hold him down while the police officer was doing something else. Someone from the crowd said, "Not on his neck, not in his neck," and his partner actually pushed him off. Pushed the police officer off from restraining him on his neck. This is a tactic that's used. And so what we need to go down to is, was he just following procedure? I understand the blame that is being leveled at this man, and, the way this man died is appalling. But, is there a culture within the police force that allows this to happen? Look at this, Robbo. It's becoming an all too familiar sight in this crisis. Another reporter has been harmed covering the riots. This time it was Channel 7 journalist Amelia Brace in the firing line. Have a look at how police treated her.
We've just had to run about a block as police moved in. We've been fired at with rubber bullets. My cameraman has been hit. We've also seen tear gas being used. Here we go, they're moving through again. This is exactly what it looks like. Exactly what it looks like. We're just staying safely.
Oh.
Whoa. Oh.
Amelia, can you hear us?
Amelia, are you okay? Or your cameraman? Hello, Amelia. The police just charged at Amelia and our 7 News cameraman there.
That we were media, but they don't care. They're being indiscriminate at the moment. They chased us down that street, and as you see, they were firing these rubber bullets at everyone. There is tear gas, and now we are really surrounded by the police, and you really saw the way that they dealt with my cameraman, Tim. They're quite violent.
Robbo, the thing that gets me about this is that reporters like that are safer in war zones because media are treated actually with a bit more respect in war zones. This is appalling. And is this the culture of police that we were just talking about, where that wasn't a random attack? You can't just say that reporter was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That officer came after that camera. We saw them swipe it down. I'm appalled looking at this.
Yes, but what we've got to understand is we're not in that situation. We're not a police officer. The media is a minority in that crowd. It's high adrenaline. There's lots of emotion. It's live or die. I think it's very hard for us.
You're targeting cameras.
No, you're not targeting what you're doing. No. I really disagree with you on this one. I think that in that situation, yes, he's got a very big camera on you, but as a police officer, you have got all of these other people, hundreds of people who are being aggressive towards you, aggressive to each other, and it's a split decision. It's very tough.
You say aggressive. What I saw was a lot of people standing there, not actually charging.
It's very tough for us to sit here on our armchairs and, in our chairs and look at that and go, oh, well, that was bad. Yes, on camera, on face value, it's bad. But just for a moment, put your brain or your thoughts into that police officer's mind. There's a lot going on. It's a lot happening. He is being told, obviously, because they all move forward, that's what they're doing. They are moving forward. Anyone is in the way, I'm sorry, you've got to get out of the way. It's so volatile. We keep saying, on the show here, the word chaos. That's chaos. So you can't expect someone to be in a chaotic, high adrenaline situation and make, these kind of very smooth and measured thoughts. It's quick decisions. Obviously, I think that the police officer would think that's not someone that I need to push back. They're just doing a job. But it happens like that. I think it's very difficult and probably a little bit naive for us.
I can't disagree with you more. I'm naive, am I? Okay. I look at that scene and that police officer has anywhere to go. He saw a camera and he took aim at that camera. Even if he'd pushed them out of the way because he's charging through, that's fine. It was more than that. He actually then pushing that camera down, knocking it to the ground. This is a blight on journalism and free speech. And seriously, I'm going to follow this up and talk to some journalists who've been in war zones, because I have a feeling they have media and they're more respected than the police of the United States, where freedom is meant to be king. Ben, based on our conversations yesterday, I'm assuming you agree with Robbo on this.
Yeah, I just think I think Robbo is 100% correct here. What you are probably neglecting to hear, Rob, when I did some research on this, they are asking people to get out of the way. These people who are being pushed forward by barricades, they are as announcements that's going off beforehand. The president and government officials are asking to people to get out of the way. And I understand journalists want to tell a story, but I don't understand a journalist's motivation when they're going to get in the way, because those who can get hurt will get hurt. And it's just a matter of a simple protocol of them pushing people forward. These days, things aren't as black and white as what they used to be. You don't know if that man's camera is a gun. You don't necessarily know any of this. These people have been warned to move, and a journalist is actually making a decision to stay there because they want to capture emotive footage. I say those people need to move out of the way because they're in harm's way. And, and when I say this, I ask these people to get out of the way because I want them to be safe. I understand that.
Yeah, you've got a wall of people, I agree with Ben wholeheartedly. If you've got a wall of people, violence, fireworks going off, Molotov cocktails, things like that, are you expecting a policeman in that moment to just have this wonderful outlook on life and go, actually, I've got to stop. No, I can't go to that person or that person, but all of these other people around them, I've
You're
got to push them back.
a professional who's been trained for this. Yes, I expect you to make decisions. Otherwise, it's indiscriminate. And also, sorry, Robbo. What you both are saying is that stuff the press. We basically, let's go down the dictatorship. If it was a one-off incident, that's one thing. We've seen arrests of journalists. We've seen journalists targeted. This is not a random attack. This is targeted by the police.
Maybe this is a generational. Rob, it's really interesting. We have a lot of people that watch the show every day and give us some feedback. And someone yesterday gave a valid piece of information about maybe a generational distance between Rob, myself, and you, and maybe a lack of understanding and a lack of faith in the police. If you look at what happened with the LGBTI riots, which sparked Mardi Gras, there was a lot of violence there where the police were 100% incorrect and motivated in a really bad way.
So is that a generational
I have to say that because I wasn't around for that, and whilst I understood it, I think that you will also understand that when you live through something, you're probably more aware of it. I'm not saying that, you're 80 years of age and you were there for that, but I think that you have probably been more witness to a time where police have done the wrong thing. We have to move forward. And we have to use our brains when we think about this. And I'm not using that as an attack on you saying you're not using your brain. But what I'm trying to say is we all have to think about it. We all have to think about that circumstance. And in this situation, if a person who is rioting that is wrong, a person who is peacefully protesting is in the way, Get out of the way, is what I'm trying to say. You need to move out of the way.
But there again, we're attacking people who were peacefully protesting. I didn't see in that footage anyone charging at the police. The police made a stand to go forward. But look, to just show you...
There's a narrative. There's a continuous... I think there is a... I feel from you that you haven't bent in the last 24 hours on this discussion, and I think, you're in your absolute right to have your opinion, and I do not want to take that away from you. But I have noticed that, you're still absolutely standing strong, and I can respect you for that, but I do think we need to think a little bit more outside of the box on this, and I agree with Robbo today.
All right, well, let me say this. I do not have a disrespect for the police. I absolutely do not. But I have a disrespect for certain actions that are happening. And I think I'll be able to prove that with this story, because there have been more disturbing scenes from the US where a video has been released showing a woman being knocked down by a police officer. The video was shot in downtown Baltimore by onlookers. Allegedly, the woman told reporters that she was mentally ill and unable to get home. Take a look at the video, and we warn, some of the images are confronting.
Oh! 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 Damn, yo! That was her fault, though. Yo, I ain't gonna lie, yo, I'm about to get...
The officer involved has been placed on administrative duties pending the outcome of an investigation. Ben, I'm going to say something here. That woman deserved everything she got. You attack a police officer, you get the full force of the law. I have no problem with that, the way the police officers acted here.
Yeah. I mean, I think in that particular situation, that tells a particular story. There's a woman who is much bigger than these police officers at sight. I'm not saying that they are, exactly the same, but at sight, these police officers did look like they were in danger. And I think that the force that man used, to me, seemed a little bit severe. But I think at the end of the day, they were put into a situation where she was being violent, she was being physical, and unfortunately, whilst that is a very graphic and disturbing image, I think the police were just trying to control the situation.
Absolutely. So the reason I want you to know my view on that is because I do have respect for the police, and I'm definitely not saying that they are evil or anything like that. But when I see members of the media get attacked, or any innocent person, not just the media.
But Rob, can I just quickly sorry, Robbo.
Sorry, no, you go.
Robbo, sorry. Rob, I think sometimes when we're having these discussions, and this is not a personal attack on you at all, we have some validity in what it is that we're saying, and you become very staunch with your opinion and you don't seem to move. I went and did some research on that previous piece of footage where that police officer where that reporter from Channel 9 cameraman was hit really badly. Sorry, for 7. I heard that they were offering warnings to push people back. These people were in the way. I still can't understand why you can't see that those people need to move out of the way. So look, these are two different situations. One story was from about 5 minutes ago. This is a completely different one. But I just need for you to say, look, police, in that other situation, that reporter had no business being there.
I don't agree. And look, I can be moved with good argument, but saying a reporter shouldn't be there doing the right thing, obeying police instructions, and they're still getting targeted.
She wasn't obeying police instructions. She was asked to move. She was asked to move repeatedly. She was asked to move out of the way.
Yeah, she was part of a very big group that was being... Yeah, sorry, but I agree with you. She was part of a very big group who was asked to move back. Volatile, chaotic situation. I don't believe... I reckon if we see the vision, I don't know if we can, but, he's moving forward and moving other people around. He doesn't just go for them. He's going for all of them in that area. He's been ordered to push back. I do not think it was an attack, a personal attack on a... Your mic's still open there, Rob.
Sorry.
There's not a personal attack on that journalist. If we were looking at a journalist the same as that woman in that video just before, and they were on their own doing a piece there, and the police walked up to them and smashed them, that's obviously what you're talking about, I think. But when you're part of a massive crowd who are protesting, who are throwing bottles, throwing fireworks, all that kind of thing, you're in the way, you're going to be pushed out of the way. And I agree with Ben. They were told to move out of the way. They want to be there. I don't think it was an attack or a singled out tunnel vision attack on the media. It was just, you are a part of this group as a policeman. They've got a lot of violence here. I'm pushing that group back. If you've got a camera, a microphone, a cocktail, Molotov cocktail or a firework, it doesn't matter. Move back.
I'm just going to offer one last piece of advice before we move on. Don't assume people haven't done their research. I do my research. I look at news all the time.
I never said that you didn't do your research.
I have 4 screens constantly watching the news feeds going around.
I never said you didn't do your research.
Well,
I never said
there's
that.
some implications of that.
No, well, I mean, an implication is one thing. That's a suspicion. When someone actually says something, then that's a fact. It's not a fact. I have not said you.
You've told me that I haven't known what Black Lives Matter. I do my research. I knew.
I'm just going to.
I know where the footage comes from.
You're picking something up from a couple of days ago. Yeah, you're picking something up from a couple of days ago.
But there was a point in there.
You might have thought I alluded to it. I didn't allude to it. I am just saying to you that the piece of information that I had and the piece of information that other people will have that I don't have, we're just collecting information. And for you, when I say to you, look, what I did when I found out that those reporters were being asked to move, that was a factual piece of information that changed the way that I see that footage. And I now give you that information. And it seems silly to me that with Robbo and I giving you our opinions, it just seems like you should be able to say, that's an aha moment. This is an aha moment. These people are in the way. They shouldn't be there.
I saw the way that police officer targeted that journalist, that cameraman, with a camera on his shoulder. There is a big difference between a protester dressed like a protester with an iPhone shooting and a broadcast camera on your back. There is a complete difference. And if a police officer can't tell the difference, then they shouldn't be a police officer because they are incompetent. You need to be able to make snap decisions.
They're
on
doing
who
their job
is
in the same situation.
Okay,
These days,
so they
it's
can
very
start
difficult.
killing people because they're doing their job.
No,
Trump's going to give them the power to shoot on sight. Bang, bang, bang. Reporters are dead. We fight against dictatorships, and now we're just saying, well, it's okay. The press got in the way, so screw them. What a ridiculous statement, people. Let's move on, because this is ridiculous. Teenage criminal offenders could soon be given softer sentences under proposed laws from the Victorian Sentencing Council. The laws would force the courts to consider out-of-home care and previous trauma. The aim is to break the cycle of offending with the hope of getting those teenagers out of the criminal cycle. But critics say that the public safety should be the priority. Ben, you live in Victoria. Would you be happy with young, sometimes violent offenders getting softer sentences?
Sorry, my volume just went out, so I missed pretty much every single thing you just said then, so you might have to ask Robbo.
Okay, we're talking about the soft sentencing for teenagers, and Robbo, do you think it would be good to give them lesser jail times to stop the cycle of criminality?
Yeah, 100%. We always talk about mature government and mature leadership, and I think this is exactly what that is. So the idea and this archaic response of going, well, you've done a wrong thing, you have been abused as a child, you've been in the foster care system, you haven't been supported, you haven't been loved, you haven't been given a chance. But what we're going to do, though, is that, yes, you did steal a car, so you're in jail, not taking into account any of those things. What we hope to do, and I think what the sentencing hopes to do here, is to kind of break that cycle and go, hey, yes, you've stolen a car, you're now in our sights. And what we want to do is trying to help you, softer sentences, rehabilitation, that kind of thing, because there is so much research that shows that a young offender being put into the prison system, all that does at that young age is further educate them in a criminal lifestyle. And it goes on and on and on, and they become almost criminals for life in most cases. This is a great way of thinking, going, how about we fix the issue? How about we look at the root of the issue? Because otherwise it keeps going. And then you start getting into generational criminal behaviour where, the mum or the dad has been in and out of prison, the son or the daughter is then in and out of prison, and that's when we need to break it. This idea of just going, no, in the jail is wrong, and I really like this. This is a good thing, and it is the way forward.
I actually think you've got some very fair points there, Robbo, because what we're doing isn't working. So let's look for alternatives. Yeah. So I actually see a lot of validity in this. Moving on, and larger waistlines, untidy eyebrows and fuzzy legs, they're all the side effects of being in isolation and working from home. But now there's something else to feel guilty about, apparently. A new report has shown an increase in feet issues, the so-called Ugg boot foot. It would appear that many of us are not wearing the right footwear at home, and that's causing problems, so say podiatrists. Ben, let me ask you a question. I can see that you're getting dressed up every day for this show. Are you wearing pants?
Oh, yeah, no. God, we've gone from talking about riding to whether or not I'm wearing pants.
Well, that's this show, Ben. We've got all angles. And you know what? I can be mad with you 1 second and then completely love you the following second. So, you know,
I completely get that. Do you know, Rob, I want to just quickly say something to you, though. And I was explaining this the other day. I was like, because someone was saying to me, oh, God, you're under fire. Like, how do you cope with someone screaming at you in an argument? And I was like, Rob McKnight reminds me of, like, back in the day when people fought over the dingo stealing the baby, where there'd be, like, a barbecue with your mates, and you're sitting around having a barbecue, and then all of a sudden, and then out of nowhere, you just all of a sudden they're like, no, that dingo didn't steal her baby. She killed it. And the next thing you know, the barbecue's tipped over and everyone's screaming.
That is a brilliant analogy. I love it.
But are we still having a beer at the end of the day?
100%. Then, like back in the day in the 80s when this was happening with Lindy Chamberlain, you know, this bloke's wife is like, give Rob McKnight a call, make up. And then like later on the phone, those phones where you dial like this and they're like, hello, hey mate. Yeah, shouldn't have said that about Lindy Chamberlain. Yeah, I had no right. Probably had too many drinks. It's all good, mate. Well, we'll see you on the footy next. Oh, good stuff. Oh, cheers, mate. Phone down. So then, moving on.
Yeah. A very quick question though, just while we're here and talking about this, Rob, yes or no? Did the dingo do it?
No.
Oh no! I've got to go.
Ben, yes or no? Did the dingo do it?
The dingo stole it.
The dingo did do it. My apologies.
Yeah.
I actually gave you the wrong answer. The dingo did do it. Lindy Chamberlain didn't do it. And there was proof of that when they were making the movie because they overweighted the prop baby by like 20 kilos or something, and the dingo picked it up very easily. And so they accidentally proved that the dingo could easily have taken that baby.
And
so sorry, Robbo. I misheard the question. I apologize.
That's all right.
But you know,
but
you both know what They did, yeah. I think that was a horrific thing. But I mean, one of those polarizing water cooler moments, you know, where Australia got out of control with, you know, a divide on what had happened is kind of similar to this, where Robin, all three of us are good friends. And yes, we probably have to break down these stories as quick as we can and be as real as we can and think emotionally with our minds the whole time. Sure. And so like I think that's about mateship, and you know, not a lot of people can have a discussion like we do and then move on. But I also will say I'm wearing pants, I'm wearing underpants, I've got shoes on.
We've totally Robbo doesn't always wear pants though.
No, I can imagine. Look. As much as I know Robbo, I can imagine. Yeah, he's not wearing pants.
Well, I got caught out in one of the first episodes of this show because I had socks on, no shoes, or just bare feet, and we took the wide shot, and I've got, oh, there's my foot. But I had pants on. Look, we got off topic big time there, but. It's just because I do like people to know that I love a good Barney. I love a good argument and talking about the topics. And I do sometimes change my mind, Ben. No, you know, sometimes.
But that's what we're here for, right?
That's right.
So...
But I honestly, I'll walk away, forget this ever happened, and I'll be talking to Ben on the phone this afternoon. And seriously, Ben, have I ever
about
held
something
anything
completely
over?
unrelated?
Yeah.
No. Just I'm going to keep doing this show until there's such thing as like a spitter vision. As once the spit starts coming out of the screen at me, then I'm going to say no. But whilst we're in different states having a debate, I'm fairly safe here.
Well, until we come down and spend the week with you, because we're not getting a hotel, we're staying with you when we come down to the Ticker Studios.
Oh, wow.
Speaking,
you know what? I'm really looking forward to that.
But just really quickly, what's really tough for me, and I carry a very heavy burden, and I want to be serious about this for a moment, is that it's really tough being on this show. We all get along, we're all friends, but it's often tough for me because I'm always right. And you guys kind of a hit and miss. So that's a really heavy crown for me to wear.
You're done. You're done.
All that is internet.
All right.
You're in the same house.
All right.
long, I
Now,
don't think.
we just spoke about Ticker, and of course, now it's time to get the very latest news headlines with Aaron Young in the Ticker newsroom.
The news headlines from Ticker now, and new tests have confirmed a Queensland man did not have coronavirus before he died, lowering the state's death total down from 7 to 6. Iconic Hawks coach John Kennedy Sr. has been elevated to AFL legend status, famous for his halftime grand final speech in 1975. He'll join Australian Football Hall of Fame. The closure of Queensland borders could be declared unconstitutional, unreasonable and discriminatory if a High Court challenge by businesses is now successful. News Corp today reporting 6 plaintiffs are behind the challenge, and it also follows calls from One Nation Senator Pauline Hanson over the past week as well. Fill up your petrol tank if you plan on heading out for a holiday this weekend. If you're getting in the car, beware because oil prices are on the rise, and so too, as night follows day, petrol price is expected to surge by this weekend as well. Let's have a look at the weather forecast now for today. Melbourne, a sunny top of 15 degrees. Sydney, 17 degrees. Sunshine and 21 degrees for Brisbane. Perth, cloudy and 22 degrees. And Adelaide, a top of 16. Let's have a look at the ASX to see where that is trending at the moment. It's been a rather rough start to trading today. Have a look at the Dow, because despite those massive protests across the United States and the word from the White House at 6:15 their time, which was of course after the markets closed, you can see that they dropped first but then have continued to rise as I guess the lockdown restrictions continue to ease. But a lot of concern about global tensions and also those protests. That's the news. This is Ticker.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. Robbo, come in. It's all good. It's all good. I know we're not supposed to do that, but we're in each other's lives all the time. So coronavirus, if he's got it, I've got it. Let's just say that. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, you're breaking all the laws. Can I just say, I don't think you need to apologise. I think the world has caught up and man-on-man love is appropriate.
Indeed. Well, look, if you were watching television in the 80s, there was no bigger show than A Country Practice. Every Monday and Tuesday night, Australia sat down to see what the residents of Wandon Valley were getting up to. One of those characters was Jo Loveday, who captured our hearts from 1985 to 1989. The actress who played that iconic role is none other than Josephine Mitchell, who joins us now. Welcome, Jo, to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Hello, Rob. Thank you for having me.
I'm absolutely thrilled, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Jo, you've done a lot of TV and theatre work, but it's fair to say Jo Loveday, she was the most iconic role you've played. Isn't that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she was in your living rooms for 1 hour twice a week.
Yeah, that's
right.
So,
you know, when someone, it's like the best thing or one of the nicest things about A Country Practice was that we were like family because we were there all the time. Yeah. Not like shows now, which is an hour maybe a week or every 2 weeks, you know, so iconic, yes.
Yes, it's funny when you say that because you had to be a family. We've seen situations now where actors hate each other so much they have to film the same scene separately and be spliced together. With a show like A Country Practice, which was making 2 hours of television a week of a drama, which is a pretty big deal. And you must have done something like 80 episodes a year, I would imagine.
Yeah, that sounds about right because we worked for about 42 weeks of the year.
So you would have had to get along, or otherwise there was no technology to have actors in different rooms.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also, you know, in the olden days when you were expected, that was part of your job was to get along. You didn't have as much of the sort of star behaviour that I think now is people are allowed to get away with.
So there were no tanties on set?
From the animals, yes. Not from the actors, no.
It's funny you say that because the animals played a big part of A Country Practice, and one of the stories you always read in interviews with stars at the time is how painful Fatso the wombat was to work with. What was your experience?
Well, we had different Fatsos, so we never got the same Fatso. And there was one particular Fatso that you knew if the wildlife guy, the wombat wrangler, as we called him, brought him in, you knew he had a hot date on a Friday night if he brought this big, massive guy in. And if you watch the show, you'll see that sometimes Fatso is smaller, and then sometimes he's very large. But I do remember this one night, he was like, I've got to get out of here really early. And there was no sort of demarcation then. We all just sort of hung out together.
Yeah.
I've got to get out of here early. I've got this really hot date with this girl. So he bought the big one, and it proceeded to almost decimate the studio. It went for cables. It bit through things. It bit through its case, its big, huge plastic case that used to come in, and just chased people. It was not happy. That was not a happy wombat.
So what was his reasoning for bringing this one on? Because he thought no one wanted to work with them, with the wombat, they'd get through it faster?
Yeah, well, because this wombat was grumpy. It just didn't want to be there. So it was like, well, if I bring this guy along, he'll do things and I'll get to leave.
Now, my wife Amanda, who's sitting beside me, actually has a claim to fame with a country practice. Her hands were used in the show when she was on Work Experience. She did Work Experience at Channel 7. You better put your hand in shot, Amanda.
Oh my God, of course. I recognise her immediately.
She pulled a book. Who were you filling in for? Oh, it was an extra. So she was filling in for an extra while she was on Work Experience. So there you go, picking up a book.
The show touches everybody. This is the thing about it, in some way.
Now, when we look at the TV landscape, it's hard to believe a country practice had 8 to 10 million viewers weekly at its height. What was it about this show that connected with viewers?
Oh, always the writing.
Right.
For me, every show goes back to the writing, and Jim Davin, who created it, who's just a marvelous. He crafted beautiful characters, but he also crafted stories that people were interested in. And we always had a social conscience. The story, we had all our lives and loves and all of that stuff, but there was a social conscience that we touched on stories that people would be very tentative to touch on today, because they're sort of, they can, instead of people looking on social issues as bringing people together and being connective, they're now looked on as being polarizing. So, I believe that's the reason the show did so well. And also coming from the top, coming from Jim, there was a real heart to it. And you were allowed to be emotional and have sentiment, and it wasn't a bad thing back then.
It's funny you say that, because one classic moment of the series was when Prime Minister Bob Hawke appeared on the show because of a political issue. Let's take a look.
Thank you for inviting me to your party. I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to make it or not, but here I am. Ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages of Wandon Valley, I made a special effort to be here today because of a particular letter that was amongst dozens I received a few weeks ago from the students of Burrigan High School. This girl wanted to know if politicians take any notice of kids, and I hope that my presence here today answers that question for her.
What was that day of filming like? You had the Prime Minister of the country taking part in a drama TV series. I mean, that just doesn't happen.
No, it was, I remember we only had him for a certain amount of time. I can't remember how many hours, and he did that in one take. It was just, this is what he did. And we said hello, we had a couple of photographs taken, and then he had to whip off because, he was the leader of our nation at the time. I just, it was sort of mind-blowing. And in a way, it's a sort of a beautiful expression of Australia's innocence too, that the Prime Minister would actually do come on a show. But it was also with a good message, because at that time, as I remember it, the storyline in the show was that we were really worried about nuclear war.
That's right.
And so it was a real issue. It was in the paper daily. It was, how do we actually have this sort of thing hanging over us, this fear? So, I mean, that's where country practice did its best work, where it took the ideas of what was happening at the time in our country and it expressed them in a way. I mean, it was monumental to have Bob Hawke there. It really was.
Absolutely. And, I fixated on a country practice a lot, but you've appeared in so many other Australian shows like Home and Away and All Saints, in addition to your theatre work. What do you love about acting?
Everything. It's like, honestly, seriously, it is the most wonderful thing, wonderful feeling, energy to be part of a group of people who all they are doing is being creative. Everybody's working towards, in a family way, looking after each other, but it is the creativity. It's just being in that frisson of everybody doing their best, everybody wanting to do their best. It's fabulous. And whether it's on stage, I mean, I love stage because, after the six weeks of rehearsal, usually 6 weeks of rehearsal, you get to go in there and do a run of 6 weeks. And it's you and the audience is very close. So when you're doing a play, that's really wonderful. And you have more control as an actor, but as long as you're doing what the director wants. But on television, there are a few more people in post-production and stuff who actually have control over what you're doing. But it is literally being creative. It is being able to sit around other people being creative that I find very addicting. I find it marvellous.
And what are your loves now? What are you doing that brings you joy?
I write, which it brings me a lot of joy and makes me feel like a normal human being when I do it, and keeps me very grounded. I play with my puppies. I have 3 puppies whom I love and adore.
Gosh.
And we're scratching at the door earlier. You probably didn't hear it. And I read. I'm as you can probably see from my background, I am a huge reader. This is just one of the bookcases in my house.
Wow.
And I know it's, COVID has been terrible for lots of reasons, but I'm one step away from a hermit. So I have actually really enjoyed watching others take a breath and just be, and we've all contracted in a way, and I've really, I mean, people's deaths are not great,
No,
obviously, but for those of us who have been able to, just taking that breath and going, there are more things in the world than constantly being on the go and rushing, and so
It's interesting you say that, because at one stage you were on the cover of TV Week pretty much weekly. You had such a high presence, and it's interesting to hear you say you've become a bit of a hermit and retreated from the world. What brought that about? Is it because you've lived the side where everyone wants a piece of you and you've drawn back from that?
I mean, I've got to say, I have only ever been treated very well by the audience and members of the public who have watched the shows that I've been on. So it's never been a conflict. I think if I was treated poorly, then I would be going, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. No, I'm actually pretty much a singular person. I like my own company. I have always liked my own company, and I think great creativity comes out of being in your own company.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Well,
So it's not. I've not been forced to do it, but I did. I took off quite a bit of time because I had small children, and I don't have a lot of family who would have looked after those children. But those children are now grown into very fine individuals. So
Well, I would love to see you back on the screen in some way because I think you were just terrific and you are missed by the Australian public. So I understand taking time out for family. I really do understand that. And it's only something that I've discovered recently that's an important part to do. But I really would love to see you back on our screens daily if possible. So, Joe, whatever you do next and whatever, wherever life takes you, we love you. Thank you for being on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show today.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You'll never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
Today we're taking you to downtown Seattle in the US of A. It's a mostly sunny day with a low of 9 degrees and a top of 19 degrees. Let's take a look at some of the feedback coming through to the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. Amanda says, this is the first time in riots that we have seen police targeting journalists. I absolutely agree with that, and it's something we haven't seen in the past. So it's a scary situation. We also have Jeanette saying, I agree, the woman created the situation. She got herself involved. She's talking about the lady who was knocked down by police after she attacked them. We have Jason say, Rob, you go, man. Ben and Rob, you are so naive. Thank you, Jason.
What was that about?
Yeah, how many Robs are there? Sorry, you said.
That was about our conversation on the journalist. Amanda says, when I used to work, we had some customers that had been to juvenile detention, and they just didn't care. They were all very aware of the limitations of what police could do to them, as they were underage and made the most of it. She worked in it, Robbo. You got to listen to this feedback. You got to listen to what other people say.
No, I've listened to it, but she's just wrong. No.
I like Amanda. She's a very big fan of our show, and luckily you'll be off her Christmas card list. We love you, Amanda. Keep the feedback coming.
I will.
And finally, Jason again, because he wanted to put a bit more. All three of you are still cool, and all three of you have different opinions, which is good. With all respect to the three of you,
what is that?
This time I have to agree with Rob on the American riots.
They probably meant Robbo. We don't know. It could have been Ben.
Jason knows what he meant. He's always very good at getting us right. Well, you know what? Every time on Wednesday, what day are we on? Tuesday. Every Tuesday we talk to, I'm really on top of it today, but every Tuesday we talk to the man who understands politics probably more than the Prime Minister. It's none other than Sam Dastyari. Sorry, what?
That's a very big
What
call.
a ridiculous claim.
It's not a claim. It's not a ridiculous claim.
What I love is, right, every day, whenever he does feedback, it's only ever the feedback that's pro-Rob that gets read out.
I know, Sam.
That is so true, Sam. That happens all
He never
the
gets
time.
I'm tweeting all the time about what Rob's really like, about he's a bit of a dick, all this stuff. Never ends up being on air.
I know. How coincidental. Sam Dastyari, you really are the voice of the people. Voice of the people.
Sam, Sam does know politics because he knows how to divide and conquer us.
Yeah. It's not that hard with the three of you, to be honest.
Ain't that the truth? Now,
what's that? Can I just quickly ask you, Sam, then what's the priority list for you then? Can we just quickly ask you that? So you obviously have put McKnight at the top.
No, Rob's at the bottom.
Who do you have to worry about?
No, you got to understand. No. But you're the hardest, right? Rob's easy, right? You just come on the show and you can please Rob, right? Rob just wants you to be there, right? You're the hardest. Robbo's a little bit kind of somewhere in the middle there. And then McKnight's just easy. McKnight's easy.
Is that why you don't answer my phone call, Sam?
Yeah, McKnight's like a wet lettuce, you know?
That's so true. So true. Actually, I'll cop that till the cows come home. Sam, talk to me about bailouts, because we're obviously going through financial pressures. Everyone wants money for nothing. Talk to me about the politics of bailouts.
Yeah, okay. Well, the big one that's actually looks like it's about to be announced, and this is kind of finally needed to happen, was the arts community. And if you understand, the arts were the first affected and the most affected, and probably the last of the industries that was going to have the opportunity to be able to profitably come back. You know, you look at a theatre or a play or a music concert, and you talk about someone like, I live in Sydney in the inner west, so someone like the Enmore Theatre that holds, I think, at 1,800 people. The economics of it don't work with social distancing. If I can only have every fourth seat or third seat being able to be filled, the economics of it just don't work, and people are afraid and people are scared. And so you've got this real problem where the arts community, which everyone kind of forgets this, employs a lot more people than, say, pubs and clubs and even, the sporting community in that, was probably the worst affected in that it was just decimated. And something that you know a bit about, Rob, is obviously the movie kind of and the film industry and the TV industry. The biggest problem they actually had, surprisingly, and they've still got, and while these shows have been paused, is this whole insurance issue. I don't know if you're fully aware of it, but the big problem they've got is they just can't get insurance.
Yeah.
So you can't insure the staff for coronavirus, which means
they're all freelancers.
you're exposed to
millions. They run
millions.
show contracts.
Yeah, and so there's all these kinds of technical kind of look, they seem like small problems, but you put them across and you see the industry is devastating. What's really interesting here is the politics of it all, because this is part of the problem, and again, I don't think the government's got a choice here, but this is the problem of picking winners. And that is that you go industry by industry and you start saying, right, we're going to bail out X, we're going to bail out education, we're going to bail out pubs and clubs, we're going to do a package here, package there. Soon you have everyone individually coming out and saying, what are you going to do about me? And this is the kind of real dilemma. I think you're going to find that quite a lot of people on the conservative side of politics are going to start, and I think they've already begun, to get very, very uncomfortable with just the amount of government spending and where it's all going to go. Because once you start these programs, it's very hard to stop. Now, look, I'm a lefty. I'm on the left of politics. I'm probably a bit more comfortable with spending than a lot of other people are. But I think you're going to find this whole thing is going to dominate debate for the next 5, 10, 15 years, because
Sam,
it is all going to end up getting paid back.
It's funny you mentioned that the government would choose to go by industry. Is that why arts has been left out of everything? Because there would be a traditional thinking that people in the arts sector tend to lean left and vote left. So
yeah, without a doubt,
coalition space.
Without a doubt. And there's also this kind of sense that arts isn't an issue that really moves votes, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're going to do a poll, I'm going to throw some numbers out there. I think there's a general assumption amongst Australian politics that it would break very heavily to the left. If I was going to put a figure on it, I'd say 70-30 comfortably and maybe 80-20. Certainly in the US, it's probably like 90-10, where you see something like Hollywood that's incredibly democratic, and then, you get like 3 actors like Charlton Heston or Republican, and, that becomes such a big deal because it's so rare. Right? From my cold dead hands, But look, I think that's certainly part of it. And the other thing too is that, the arts community hasn't really been a very united kind of group and a united voice, and it's the nature of the industry itself. You don't have a couple of kind of big players that kind of everyone works under. You've got essentially, it's like, it was the first part of the gig economy, right? You have a whole bunch of freelancers out there, and while they will agree on a lot of things, getting them united for causes is incredibly difficult because everyone's out there on their own contract. I mean, the arts industry a long time ago became a freelance workshop.
Ben, you have a question.
Well, yeah, I absolutely. I just had someone tweet in and speak to me, and they said that with the restrictions being eased around the country, that Sam, if you're interested in getting your eyebrows done, that the that the salons are now open. But do you know what?
Yeah.
It's so funny that since this person said this, I am absolutely fascinated with your eyebrows. And my grandmother loved big bushy eyebrows, and I think I've obviously inherited it. And I'm loving your eyebrows. Don't touch them.
Well,
do not go to the salon.
It's the John Howard look, but I have to say that a deep part of my ethnic upbringing has always dreamt of having 2. So maybe that'll be one day something I can do.
Robbo, we've got about a minute left, but you had a quick question for Sam.
Just very quickly about spending, Sam. I've always been in the idea of you don't need a surplus. Why do we always want to have a surplus? Shouldn't we be spending money that the government has? I fully acknowledge that I'm probably naive there, but if this like pathological obsession about having so many billions in the surplus, but we've got so many homeless people and we've got so many people on drug addiction. What's the thought on that?
Look, the thought is that at the end of the day, that deficits do have to be repaid, in that the government can't be borrowing forever, that, the debt that you do now is long term affecting your ability to borrow in the future. And there is a view towards, balanced budgets over time. But look, we got these, huge crises now. And the difference between this and, say, the global financial crisis in 2008, just to wrap up with, is that no one's at fault. So there was an argument in 2008 that said, you know what, screw the banks. Why are we bailing them out? Should we bail them out? Shouldn't we? They behaved badly. They gave loans they shouldn't have. And if a bunch of bankers are going to lose their jobs, they can get screwed. Now, there was an argument that said the broader effects were too bad for that. Sure, but that was an argument. The thing here is that you've got like the arts community, right? Where you've got comedians, stand up or whatever, or theatre or movie or everyone else, and the builders and them as well are kind of following soon behind, who turn around and go, look, we've done nothing wrong. We're not at fault here. Our businesses have been destroyed, not because we behaved badly or that we were unprofitable, but because this pandemic happened and you, the government, told us we're not allowed to have these shows. So how you bail that out and how you support them, I think it's also very unique here that there isn't that thing that they use the term in government and economics called moral hazard, which says you don't want to bail out people who behave badly because sometimes businesses should just go bust. You don't have that scenario.
You asked a very quick question at the end of the show when we had less than a minute, Robbo. Good on you.
Sorry,
That is
Sam.
an important question,
Sorry, Sam.
maybe one we get next week. Hey, Sam, stick around. TikTok, the Ticker Newsroom is standing by, but let's go out. Ben has got a great TikTok of the day to take us out. We will see you tomorrow on the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Yes, that's right, guys. Rob, I always like a good laugh, and this TikTok reminds me of you and Robbo and what I'm missing out on while I'm not there up in Queensland. Here's the TikTok of the day.
Saturday night and I'm drinking alone. But if you drink enough, you're not alone. Hi.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben,